Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on our webinar today. My name is Andrea Thomas. I'm the Deputy Title IX Coordinator here at Farmingdale State College. Today's presentation is about Title IX and what you need to know. By the end of this presentation, you'll be able to identify what Title IX is, what it covers, a little bit of its impact, a little bit on the Clery Act and Campus Save Act, school policies, and what it means for you. Farmingdale State College has developed a pamphlet on school policy which complies with federal and state laws. It incorporates current best practices and provides detailed information for students in need of assistance. This information is available on the FSC website along with other resources at the following link. farmingdale.edu/administration. We'll go over that in the next tab. While you're online, you might want to take a look at twitter.com and follow us, FSC Diversity. So again, just a little bit of information about where to find those policies and information on our website. If you are on the farmingdale.edu website, please click on Faculty and Staff. There you'll be able to see under the pull-down menu that there'll be Administration. You'll be able to find the website for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And then for a little bit of information on policies, they are located to your left. Once again, my name is Andrea Thomas. I'm the Deputy Title IX Coordinator here at Farmingdale State College. I work out of Thompson Hall in room 207. And I work for Dr. Veronica Henry, who is the right hand of the President, also known as the Executive Assistant to the President, Chief Diversity Officer, and Title IX Coordinator. She is located in Horton Hall, room 210. Horton Hall is also known as the Administration Building. This year, Andrew Cuomo funded crisis counseling centers that were allowed to come and partner with our college. And so we have the distinct honor and pleasure of welcoming Julie Goebel, who's on campus once a week, and she works at the retreat. If you need any resources, please don't hesitate to contact them. So what is Title IX? The phrase Title IX refers to a portion of the landmark education amendments of 1972. Title IX is a comprehensive federal law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in any federally funded education program or activity. Title IX applies to all traditional educational institutions that receive federal funding. No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. What does Title IX cover? I'll give you a hint. It's somewhere at the bottom of the screen. Sexual assault and sexual harassment. That's right. But it also covers athletics, access to higher education, career education, education for pregnant and parenting students, employment, learning environment, math and science, sexual harassment, sexual assault. It also covers standardized testing and technology. Some examples include selection of sports and levels of competition. It also includes equipment and supplies, scheduling of games and practice time, compensation, opportunity to receive coaching and academic tutoring on mathematics only, assignment and compensation of coaches and tutors, provision of facilities, provision of medical and training facilities and services, provision of housing and dining facilities and services, publicity. Basically means just everything has to be equal for men and for women. That was the original reasoning behind Title IX. Some new things that you need to know about Title IX is that Title IX is a landmark federal civil right that prohibits sex discrimination in education. Title IX does not apply to female students only. Schools must be proactive in ensuring that our campus is free of sex discrimination. Schools must have an established procedure for handling complaints of sex discrimination, harassment, or violence. Schools should ensure that a victim doesn't have to share spaces such as dorms, classes, and campus jobs with his or her assailant. Schools may not retaliate against someone filing a complaint and must keep a complainant victim safe from other retaliatory harassment or behavior. Schools can issue a no-contact directive under Title IX to prevent the accused student from approaching or interacting with you. In cases of sexual violence, schools are prohibited from encouraging or allowing mediation rather than a formal hearing of the complaint. Schools cannot discourage you from continuing your education. The impact. The impact of Title IX is certainly felt. It has increased female participation in athletics, both at high school and college level. It has also gained national attention, focusing on sexual assault and sexual harassment in educational institutions. So I think this covers a lot of you, because how many of you played sports while you were in school or currently play sports now? Possible, right? So you fall into this category. Recently, there was a documentary that was done. It was about two young women who were sexually assaulted on a campus, and their school did not take action. And what they did was they spent a lot of their time researching about information related to Title IX because their school was not compliant. Their school didn't provide information for them. And that information can be found in the documentary The Hunting Ground. But just to be clear, that information about the story of the girls who had to go out and find information related to Title IX is located in the documentary The Hunting Ground. Uh, More recently, there have been cases at Stanford and Indiana University, which had been widely publicized. We'll get into those in a little bit. The Clery Act and Campus Save Act. The Clery Act is named after Jean Clery. Jean Clery was a student who was raped and murdered in her dorm room by a fellow student in 1986. The Clery Act is named after Jean Clery. It's a federal law that requires colleges to report on campus crimes annually. This information can be found in the annual security reports on each school's website. This year, in October, we will be doing a campus climate survey, and so we'll have a much clearer understanding of what the climate is like here on our campus. It's a SUNY-wide initiative, and we ask that you please participate, that you'll be receiving an email shortly. The Clery Act also includes a Sexual Assault Victims Bill of Rights. This was later expanded upon by the Campus Save Sexual Violence Elimination Act of 2013. What does it mean for you? Well, you are protected and you have rights. The school is taking steps to uphold your rights and prevent occurrences of sexual assault and gender discrimination on campus through educational prevention programming. We've got lots of great programs lined up for you on campus this year, and I hope that you'll be proactive in participating in them. Despite this, incidents may still occur. If this happens, you can take action in several ways. The school also has a procedure in place for addressing these incidents. Contact your Title IX coordinators, that's me, and Dr. Henry. Who are the parties? Victims of sexual harassment or sexual violence might be faculty, staff, students, or third parties. The accused party may also be faculty, staff, students, or third parties. Victims and alleged perpetrators can be male or female. Harassment can take place between two individuals of the same sex. Reporting. You should report any observed experience or known sex discrimination, including sexual harassment and sexual violence, both on and off campus. Who should report? Everyone should report. Anyone who experiences or observes or hears about an incident of sexual harassment or sexual discrimination should report it to the Title IX coordinator or another campus official as soon as possible. This includes the dean's offices, department chairs, faculty, staff, students, and third parties. Just to put it into perspective, students will often come to student leaders, such as RAs, as first contact due to their trust and rapport with one another, and also their role on campus. As a student leaders are technically the first line of response in this role and being able to offer guidance. So what does that mean for the college? The college has a duty to promptly respond to complaints of sexual assault, sexual harassment, sexual violence in a way that limits its effects and prevents its recurrence. Facts. The effects of sexual assault and interpersonal violence cause real and often lasting emotional, cognitive, physical, and other types of damage to its victims. Pay attention to these facts, everyone, because I think a lot of times what happens is we have this preconceived idea of what it means to be violated. And if you pay attention, you'll understand what some of the long-term effects of being violated are. And we are not a school that lumps anybody into this category. We are a school that follows and adheres to policy very closely. So you are protected. So once again, the effects of sexual assault and interpersonal violence cause real and often lasting emotional, cognitive, physical, and other types of damage to its victims. Acts of dominance in which at least one individual imposes or attempts to impose his or her will on another individual or group in a way that threatens a single victim's or multiple victims' safety, welfare, or ability to exercise their right as granted by law. Approximately 25% of college women were sexually assaulted during their college years, and as many as 50% of college students experienced dating violence while in college. 13% of college women were stalked while in college, and 20% of NCAA student athletes were victims of hazing. 1 in 5 undergraduate women experienced sexual assault while in college. Other facts. The majority of cases involving sexual assault and other forms of interpersonal violence go unreported. In most cases, they knew the abuser and thought the abuser would make life more difficult for them on campus or retaliate if they reported the incident. Students who are survivors of violence often experience a negative impact on their academic performances, relationships with peers, and the ability to be involved in or benefit from campus life. Compliance with federal laws, state laws, and institutional policies is more than a recommendation. It is a requirement and the foundation of responsible practice in all matters relevant to addressing sexual assault and interpersonal violence. So let's go over some definitions for you just to be sure that you understand and we're clear. What is sex discrimination? Sex discrimination includes all forms of sexual harassment, including verbal, sexual harassment, and sexual violence by employees, students, or third parties against employees, students, or third parties. What is sexual violence? Sexual violence is physical violence. It's physical sexual acts perpetrated without consent. Affirmative consent is defined as knowing voluntary and mutual decision among all participants to engage in sexual activity. Consent can be given by words or actions as long as those words or actions create clear permission regarding willingness to engage in the sexual activity. Silence or lack of resistance in and of itself does not demonstrate consent. The definition of consent does not vary based upon a participant's sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. What is sexual harassment? Sexual harassment is unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature that is sufficiently severe, persistent, or pervasive that it is unreasonable and interferes with, denies, or limits someone's ability to participate in or benefit from a program or activity. Some examples of information are requests for sexual favors, unwelcome advances, sexist comments, may occur in a single episode or be persistent behavior. Don't be afraid to speak up. Anybody on campus who has violated you cannot do anything against you. They may try, but retaliation is illegal and you are covered under these policies. Some definitions of domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, or sexual assault. So the Violence Against Women Act defines domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, or sexual assault as the following. Domestic violence is any violent felony or misdemeanor crime committed by a current or former spouse or intimate partner of the victim, a person sharing a child with the victim, or a person cohabitating with the victim as a spouse or intimate partner. Dating violence is any act of violence committed by a person who is or has been in a social relationship of a romantic or intimate nature with the victim. Stalking means intentionally engaging in a course of conduct directed at a specific person, which is likely to cause a reasonable person to fear for his or her safety or the safety of others, or cause that person to suffer substantial emotional damage. Sexual assault is defined as a physical sexual act or acts committed against a person's will and consent, or when a person is incapable of giving active consent, incapable of appraising the nature of the conduct, or incapable of declining participation in or communicating unwillingness to engage in sexual act or acts. Sexual assault includes what is commonly known as rape, whether forcible or non-forcible, date rape and acquaintance rape, Nothing contained in this definition shall be construed to limit or conflict with sex offenses enumerated in Article 130 of the New York State Penal Law, which shall be the guiding reference in determining if alleged conduct is consistent with the definition of sexual assault. Alcohol and drug amnesty. So sometimes at trainings in person, we get some, questions. Well, what if I was under the influence of alcohol or maybe something else? A bystander acting in good faith or reporting individual acting in a good faith that discloses any incident of domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, or sexual assault to FSC officials or law enforcement will not be subject to FSC's Code of Conduct action for violations of alcohol and or drug use policies occurring at or near the time of the commission of the domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, or sexual assault. This includes drug use, but not sales or distributions. This is individual and does not include clubs or organizations. Grievance procedures. You have the right to confidential disclosure. To be very clear, the Title IX office is not confidential disclosure. UPD is not confidential disclosure, UPD for University Police. If you're looking to speak to somebody confidentially, you could contact the Counseling Services Center, or you could go to Mental Health and Wellness. You have the right to an investigation process. A person bringing a complaint in good faith will suffer no retaliation. The complaint should be in writing and sufficiently detailed. The person charged will be promptly notified and given an opportunity to respond. An individual will have up to 90 days after the alleged incident to file a complaint. Complaints beyond the 90-day period will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. Here at Farmingdale State College, we use a preponderance of evidence, the standard of proof in sexual harassment, sexual violence, and sexual assault cases, which asks whether it is more likely than not that the sexual harassment, sexual assault, or sexual violence occurred. If the evidence presented meets this standard, and then the accused should be found responsible. So earlier in the presentation, I mentioned that this presentation is based on the SUNY Policies on Sexual Violence, Prevention, and Response. It was adopted by Farmingdale State College's College Council and Cabinet on February 18th, 2015. It was updated on July 2015 to reflect state law. This is available at farmingdale.edu, Administration, Equity, Diversity, and that's the same website that I showed you earlier. For access to the SUNY discrimination complaint procedure, you can also find that on the Farmingdale website in the same location. So that's farmingdale.edu/administration, equity, diversity, complaint procedure. Don't forget to click on faculty and staff to reach the administration column. Student Bill of Rights. So the Student Bill of Rights is widely disseminated on campus. It exists online. You probably received it in your welcome packet. And just for further reference, you can find it at farmingdale.edu/administration, equity, diversity, sexual violence victim survivor Bill of Rights. This is a really important document because you'll be held responsible for your actions based on this, and you need to know your rights, because how can you really reap the benefits of attending an institution that's here to protect you if you don't read carefully and understand what you're protected by? So in short, you have the option to do one or more of these: receive resources such as counseling and medical attention, confidentially or anonymously disclose a crime or violation, make a report to an employee with the authority to address complaints, including the Title IX coordinator, a student conduct employee, or a human resources employee, university police, local law enforcement, family court, or civil court. These rights have no relationship to geography. They apply no matter where you are. They include a statement of inclusivity. They apply to everyone. They describe how to treat people appropriately, fairly, and equally. Our response to the policy, you'll be able to report. We'll tell you that you have rights to resources. We'll share with you information on protections and accommodations and the student conduct process. You are entitled to confidential disclosure. You are entitled to privileged and confidential resources, non-professional counselors and advocates, privacy versus confidentiality. So, privacy, you can speak to me, the Title IX coordinator, Deputy Title IX coordinator, and privacy, but I'm not confidential. You can request confidentiality, and it will be how the college, university will weigh the request and respond. You're entitled to public awareness and advocacy events. So we'll do a lot of prevention education on campus, as I mentioned earlier in our little segment. And you are entitled to anonymous disclosure and institutional crime reporting. We have a right, we have a duty to report on the incidences that happen on our campus. Confidential disclosure. The State University of New York and Farmingdale State College want you to get the information and support you need, regardless of whether you would like to move forward with a report of sexual violence to campus officials or to police. You may want to talk with someone about something you observed or experienced, even if you're not sure that the behavior constitutes sexual violence. I know that sometimes those lines can be gray, but even if you're unsure, you think maybe, just maybe, please come in and have a conversation with us. A conversation where questions can be answered is far superior to keeping something to yourself. Confidentiality varies, and this document is aimed at helping you understand how confidentiality applies to different resources that may be available to you. In this policy, you'll find privileged and confidential resources, non-professional counselors and advocates, privacy versus confidential, requesting confidentiality, how the college university will weigh the request and the response, public awareness and advocacy events, anonymous disclosure, and institutional crime reporting. So sometimes on campus, when you're walking around in the campus center, you may see a purple brick wall. Well, that is part of our It's On Us campaign, and it was painted by a student about 2 years ago. We have attained more than 1,000 signatures on us, and that's people on campus like you who have taken the pledge they've taken ownership to say that it's on us to recognize that non-consensual sex is sexual assault, to identify situations in which sexual assault may occur, to intervene in situations where consent has not or cannot be given, to create an environment in which sexual assault is unacceptable and survivors are supported. So in some media outlets, you may have seen more recently that maybe It's On Us campaign has been a pretty big deal. If you notice right down here, you have some celebrities that are advocating for it. Lady Gaga spoke out very publicly about it. Kesha spoke out very publicly about an incident that she had. And It's On Us is basically a way to just accept ownership. The initiative was put forth by Vice President Biden. It's a very serious one. If you take a look at this graph right here, it's on us to step up and stop sexual assault. So the percentage indicates that there's 6% of men in college who admit to committing sexual assault. That means that 94% of men can stop it. Now, this chart is very specific. It is not to indicate that men are not victims of sexual assault. They are sometimes victims of sexual assault. So together, men and women, we need to take responsibility for the actions of others. Sometimes we're at a party, people get, the lines get crossed, and people aren't really sure whether or not they just, should step in and, look out for another one. Lots of stigma associated with that. But I tell you something, if you like someone that night, you will like them tomorrow. Once again, the resources you have on campus are Dr. Veronica Henry, Title IX Coordinator, located in Horton Hall, Room 210, and me, Andrea Thomas, Deputy Title IX Coordinator. I work out of Thompson Hall in Room 207. Other resources on campus include University Police and mental health and wellness, as well as the counseling services. Resources off campus and around the area. You have local agencies such as The Retreat. The Retreat is a little further than some of the other organizations around here. The Retreat is located in Eastern Long Island. So if you live out in that area, maybe you want to consider reaching out to The Retreat. Vibes is one that's located very close here in Farmingdale. The Long Island Against Domestic Violence is located very close. The SAFE Center, National Sexual Violence Resource Center, RAIN, womenshealth.gov, Not Alone, It's on Us, End Rape on Campus, and Know Your Nine. I'm going to leave this slide up for a few minutes because I'd really love for you to write down this information so that you have it available to you. The SUNY website, the main SUNY Central website, also has come up with a fantastic resource for each individual campus, which highlights all of the resources that you would need for local agencies nearby, if in case you don't find this piece of paper that you wrote this information on. So, as much as I would love to engage with you in questions, I can go over a little bit about what questions is, but or I can also reiterate. Sometimes people get nervous that they were under the influence of alcohol, and they want to know whether or not they're protected by these resources and rights. Yes. If you are acting in good faith and you're sharing information with us about how somebody was violated on campus or off campus, please be sure to let us know. We're happy to help you. If you have any other questions, please feel free to give me a call at extension 6276 or 631-794-6276. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Take a look at our website at www.farmingdale.edu. And that's again under the Faculty and Staff Administration tab. You can find the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Okay, moving forward, we have another segment for you. This one won't be as long, but it is about bystander intervention. This is a role that you can play. So, what is a bystander? Throughout history, it has been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, and the silence of the voice of justice when it mattered most. That has made it possible for evil to triumph. People nowadays. The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but those who watch without doing anything. So bystanders are individuals who witness emergency, criminal events, or situations that could lead to criminal events, and by their presence may have the opportunity to provide assistance, do nothing, or contribute to the negative behavior. In the context of this program, pro-social bystanders are individuals whose behaviors intervene in ways that impact the outcome positively. And a little bit on that history is the study of bystanders began with the case of Kitty Genovese. I don't know how many of you heard of Kitty Genovese, but Kitty Genovese was stabbed outside of her apartment in Queens, and something like 30 people had witnessed this event. The attack was observed by multiple witnesses, and they did nothing to help her. The incident began the scientific study of what is called the bystander effect. Oh, we live in New York. And sometimes, we're all looking around to see who's going to do what for the other person. And we operate under this idea that someone else is coming, but no, it's on us, right? So, just to reiterate, what is sexual violence? Some facts to consider. 1 in 5 female college students will experience a sexual assault during their college career. 1 in 4 women and girls will experience a sexual assault during their lifetime. 1 in 3 women and girls will experience sexual or physical violence during their lifetime. This equals 1 billion women and girls worldwide. Has anybody ever heard of V-Day, 1 billion rising? That's where this comes from. Check out these statistics. 1 in 71 men will experience a sexual assault during their lifetime. Why do you suppose that number is so much lower? Is it happening less? No, not necessarily. There are a lot of barriers for reporting, as you'll see in the next slide. 9 out of 10 victims of sexual assault knew their perpetrator, and less than 5% of completed or attempted sexual assaults against college women were reported to the police. This number is even lower for men who are victims of completed or attempted sexual assaults. Why are the numbers reporting so low? Barriers to reporting for both genders: shame, guilt, embarrassment, concerns about confidentiality. Some barriers for men reporting: implications for masculinity, role as a male, fear of not being believed, not wanting to self-identify as a victim of sexual assault. Some barriers for LGBTQ individuals: fear of being outed if they're not out. Rape is, the legal definition is the penetration, no matter how slight, of the vagina or anus with any body part or object, or oral penetration by a sex organ of another person without the consent of a victim. Rape is an act of violence and sex is the weapon. Sexual assault is any type of sexual activity, including rape, that a person did not agree to. It can also be verbal or visual, including voyeurism or peeping, exhibitionism or flashing, sexual harassment or threats, or forcing someone to pose for explicit photos. All of these actions are illegal. Oh, so let's look at some risky and illegal behavior. So behavior is reciprocated, unwanted, repeated. Environments are offensive, intimidating, and hostile. So some low risky behavior are winks, invading body space, posters, drawings, cartoons. Somewhere along the middle is recognition, sexist or sexual remarks, and it's illegal to touch anybody in a sexual manner or physical assault. That is unwelcome. What is rape culture? So we hear a lot of different forms of culture recently. Culture, what is rape culture? So some of that includes calloused sexual attitudes. So people become a little bit cold to talking about sex. Oh, well, if she was raped, she must have been asking for it. And that's unacceptable. So that's an example of a calloused sexual attitude. Hypermasculinity and ideas of what a man needs to be, as in a man can't express emotion, or he has to be tougher than he might want to be. That's a form of hypermasculinity. It's a form of rape culture, believe it or not. The denigration of women is a form of rape culture, and sexism. What can you do as a bystander? So there are a couple of ways, right? We have the least safe and we have the safest. If you are close up and alone, naturally that's the least safest way for you to intervene in a situation if you see something. The safest way is to report with others and keep your distance. But sometimes that's not always something that's available to you. So one thing that you could do, which helps the victim or somebody who's currently being violated, is to hit 911 and give a call. Let's reflect on Kitty Genevieve's, where 30 people witnessed her being stabbed and nobody did anything. Everybody's always looking at the other. So feel free to take responsibility and protect someone else's life. When possible, engage other people to help intervene. It is okay to ask for help. Keep a safe distance whenever possible. This can mean calling the police, an RA, or another skilled professional. A good bystander de-escalates a situation. Some recent cases, earlier I spoke about the Stanford rape case. So Stanford student Brock Turner sexually assaulted a woman behind a dumpster at a party. 2 foreign exchange students intervened, chased him when he attempted to flee the scene, and held him at the scene until help arrived. While the rapist's sentencing and the letters written to the judge have drawn the most public attention in the case, this remains an important example of bystander intervention. Because those students had acted the way they did by taking video recording and by preventing the student who, Brock Turner, was still sexually assaulting a woman, they were able to detain Brock Turner. It may not have been for a length of time that many people agree with, but actions were taken. And I think the more that we can address issues of sexual assault in a healthy way, where people have taken accountability to stop things from happening with their own power in a positive way, we certainly can affect change. Another recent case is in Gainesville, Florida. This is a really great example. A University of Florida linebacker, Christian Garcia, and his coworker, Leroy Ye Simmons, interviewed to stop a sexual assault that was occurring behind their place of employment. They interrupted the perpetrator and his friends and took cell phone video to give to the police. Garcia pulled the perpetrator off the victim, ending the assault. If that was my sister, I would hope that somebody would do the same thing. So I just reacted the same way, in the words of Christian Garcia. What is consent? Consent is when someone agrees, gives permission, or says yes to sexual activity with other persons. Consent is always freely given, and all people in a sexual situation must feel that they are able to say yes or no or stop the sexual activity at any point. The definition of affirmative consent: it is not enough for someone to say no. The person must give a clear yes. This is called affirmative consent. Giving consent means the person knows and understands what is happening. The person knows what they want to do. The person is able to say what they want to do. The person is sober. What is consent? Because consent is ongoing. Consent is freely given. Past consent does not give future consent. And consenting to one sexual activity is not consenting to all sexual activity. Every new action needs consent. If you see to the right, the little kitty is not giving consent. That's a very good example. Who cannot consent? A person cannot consent if they are underage. The legal age is 17. They cannot consent if they're intoxicated by alcohol or drugs, either prescription or illegal. They cannot consent if they have an intellectual disability, if they're not awake and conscious, and are being coerced, forced, tricked, or pressured into sexual activity. The not so gray areas: consent is still needed even if you're married, dating, or in a relationship, or if you've had sex previously. Remember, previous consent does not equal future consent. Consent is as simple as tea. Just one moment, I'll pull this video up for you. It's a really fun video that I really enjoy. Hopefully you'll enjoy it too.
If you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" And they go, "Oh my God, I would love a cup of tea. Thank you." Then you know they want a cup of tea. If you say, "Would you like a cup of tea?" And they're like, I'm not really sure. Then you could make them a cup of tea or not, but be aware they might not drink it. And if they don't drink it, then, and this is the important part, don't make them drink it. Just because you made it doesn't mean you are entitled to watch them drink it. And if they say no, thank you, then don't make them tea at all. Just don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea. Don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea. Okay? They might say, "Yes, please. That's kind of you." And then when the tea arrives, they actually don't want the tea at all. Sure, that's kind of annoying as you've gone to all the effort of making the tea. But they remain under no obligation to drink the tea. They did want tea, now they don't. Some people change their mind in the time that it takes to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and have it. And it's okay for people to change their mind. And you are still not entitled to watch them drink it. And if they're unconscious, Don't make them tea. Unconscious people don't want tea. And they can't answer the question, do you want tea? Because they're unconscious. Okay, maybe they were conscious when you asked them if they want tea. And they said yes. But in the time it took you to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk, they are now unconscious. You should just put the tea down. Make sure the unconscious person is safe. And this is the important part again. Don't make them drink the tea. They said yes then, sure, but unconscious people don't want tea. If someone said yes to tea, started drinking it, and then passed out before they finished it, don't keep on pouring it down their throat. Take the tea away. Make sure they're safe, because unconscious people don't want tea. Trust me on this. If someone said yes to tea around your house last Saturday, that doesn't mean they want you to make them tea all the time. They don't want you to come around to their place unexpectedly and make them tea and force them to drink it going, but you wanted tea last week. Or to wake up to find you pouring tea down their throat going, but you wanted tea last night. But if you can understand how completely ludicrous it is to force people to have tea when they don't want tea, and you're able to understand when people don't want tea, then how hard is it to understand it when it comes to sex? Whether it's tea or sex, consent is everything. And on that note, I'm going to go make myself a cup of tea. If you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, hey, would you like?
Okay, thanks for watching. Just a couple more slides left. Hopefully you understand that was a very, very good example of what consent is. So what means yes? Oh yeah, yes. Yes, that's what I want. Oh dear God, please, yes. I thank everybody so much for their time today. This is very important information. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Once again, my name is Andrea Thomas. I'm the Deputy Title IX Coordinator here at Farmingdale State College. I'm based out of Thompson Hall in room 207. I work with Dr. Veronica Henry, who is the Executive Assistant to the President, Chief Diversity Officer, and Title IX Coordinator here at Farmingdale State College. She is based out of Horton Hall in room 210. Please don't hesitate to contact us should you have any question or you need any guidance. Thanks again.